Once a friend asked me, "How did the idea of collecting cameras come to you?" I told him, "I don't know, it just clicked to me." Essentially, I started buying film cameras when I realized that I liked the whole process, from loading the film to developing it. I started photography with a Voigtlander Bessa, which belonged to my grandfather. In 2008, I bought my first DSLR. After a few years, I went back to shoot films again. I started using different types of films and wanted to use different types of cameras and lenses. With every different camera, the workflow is a little bit different. Soon enough, I realized I have a small collection of various film cameras. All these cameras are used ones. I found them in Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, and even sometimes from family members of photographers. Today, I am going to show you 7 cameras from my collection. Pentax K1000. This is the most precious camera for me because this was my father's camera. I learned photography from my father, so when he gave me his favorite camera, I could not be happier. Pentax K1000 was produced for 2 whole decades, up until late 1990s. This is still considered as one of the best cameras for learning photography. The beauty of this camera is in its simplicity. I love the build quality of the body. The lens that you see here is a 50mm f2.0. This used to be my father's favorite combination. You can see a lot of wear and tears in this model, indicating how much he used it and loved it. I still use it. Actually, I have a Kodak Portra 800 loaded in here, so I cannot open the back. Leica M4. When I first got this one added to my collection, I was skeptical whether I would like the workflow of a rangefinder, but I did. What makes this camera special to me is its simplicity, build quality, and the handling. According to the serial number that you see on the top of the model, this particular one was made in 1967. So far, I know this is coming from a rare batch of black paint M4 models. The signature look comes from the brush color underneath the black paint. I personally find this beautiful. Also, I have a few original Leica lenses that I use with this camera. These include 35mm, 50mm, and also a 90mm. Based on which lens I am using, the frame line within the viewfinder changes. Nikon F5. I think I use this camera the most when I am shooting with 35mm film. This used to be the best professional film camera produced by Nikon in late 1990s and early 2000s. As you can imagine, this camera has a lot of professional features. My favorite feature is the easy motor-driven film loading. I also like the modular viewfinder. You can attach different types of viewfinder, including a waist level finder. I have even used the camera without the viewfinder, just looking at the glass screen while trying some street shots. This one is DP30 multi-metering pentaprism viewfinder. This is a really heavy model. It takes 8 batteries to operate, but it is extremely fast while autofocusing and with exceptionally short shutter lag. So I use it a lot in my studio while working with models, but I try to avoid it while traveling. Mamiya 645 Pro. This is the first ever medium format camera that I bought. I typically do not like to buy cameras online, but this one I bought from eBay with a lot of trepidations in my heart. However, I was not disappointed. The camera performed as it should be. As the name suggests, it shoots with a ratio of 6 by 4.5. This has a fairly good autofocus system and an excellent metering system too. I have shot Velvia, which is extremely sensitive to correct exposure with this camera, depending totally upon the in-camera metering system, and the results were fantastic. I have 3 lenses to use with my Mamiya: 80mm, 55 to 110mm, and a 150mm prime. My favorite is the 150mm, which I typically use for in-studio portrait works. And now is the time for my dream camera, Hasselblad 500cm. Totally modular, extremely reliable, and totally mechanical. Different versions of Hasselblad 500 systems have been produced from 1957 till 2005, 48 years. Hasselblad has a unique system of serial number, and you can tell the year it was built from the serial number. It starts with 2 letters, and the letters indicate the year it was built. The key is this. VH stands for Victor Hasselblad. The serial number of my Hasselblad starts with UH. That means it was built in 1972. Rollei Flex 2.8A version 1. This is another famous square format medium format camera, and this one is the oldest in my collection. According to the serial number, it was produced between 1949 and 1951. About 8,000 cameras of this particular model were produced, and the whole batch was exported to North America. I bought this one from the son of its original owner. Unlike Hasselblad, this is a TLR, twin lens reflex camera. Though it takes 120mm film, you can attach a Rollei adapter to use 35mm film on this camera. I bought it only few days ago, so I am yet to use this system. Takahara 4x5. This is the largest camera that I have. And interestingly, this is the youngest among all these 7 cameras that I showed you today. This one was made in 2008. I bought it last year from a previous member of our club. As the name suggests, it takes 4" by 5" sheet film. You would have to focus by adjusting the below. I have 2 lenses to use. The one that you see here is 150mm lens, which is equivalent to a 45mm lens of 35mm format. It is totally handmade, wooden, made from 300 to 500 years old cherry wood, coming from Hidaka province of Hokkaido, Japan. Here is a fun fact that I read in Ken Rockwell's website. If you consider the resolution of film and try to equate the megapixel information it can capture, a 4x5 Velvia 50 film, which is rated to have 160 lines per millimeter is equal to 1140 megapixel. That's quite a bit. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the presentation.